Hi, I'm Andy Temte, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Muse. Start your weekend with musings that are designed to improve financial literacy around the world. Today is May the 3rd, 2025. As mentioned at the close of last week's episode, we're going to start exploring the concepts of money and the macroeconomy. To do this, however, we need to dial the clock back, way back. We need to get grounded, and we need to answer the question, why do we trade with other nations? Well, why do we start with trade? Because trade forms the basis for currencies and macroeconomies. So, to get started today, we're going to build a hypothetical economy. Here, the known world consists of two regions populated by two groups of humans that have had minimal historical interaction. Group 1 lives on a verdant plain filled with a wide variety of plants. Grains and fruit are plentiful, and much of the grain and fruit that is available each year is not consumed by the humans that populate Group 1. There is excess capacity of grains and fruit, and the supply is reliable across seasons. We're going to call this area of our hypothetical world Fruitland. Note that there is a limited supply of wildlife in Fruitland, but hunting is very difficult and costly, as hunting in Fruitland is risky and frequently leads to injury and death. Now, Group 2 lives on the other side of a daunting but passable mountain range, which serves as a barrier that has previously separated these two groups. Group 2 resides in a wooded area that's filled with wildlife that can be easily hunted year-round, but given the terrain and soil conditions, it's difficult to reliably grow grains, and there is very little fruit to be found due to these poor growing conditions. The grain that's naturally available to Group 2 has to be stored for long periods of time, and harvesting it is difficult and resource-intensive. However, hunting is easy, and a variety of meat sources are available throughout the year. We're going to call this area Protein Land. So we've got Fruitland and Protein Land. So in this hypothetical world economy, Fruitland and Protein Land have developed independently, and recently explorers from Fruitland have found a passage over the mountains and have introduced themselves to the leaders of Protein Land. So exploration has occurred. We're going to make the assumption that rudimentary peaceful communication has been established between these two groups. It's a very important assumption. Now, these explorers from Fruitland, they see the availability and excess capacity of wildlife that Protein Land has, and simultaneously educates the leaders of Protein Land on the availability and excess supply of grains and fruits that are available on the other side of the mountains. Fruitland explorers, they had the foresight to bring some samples of fruit with them, and as a goodwill gesture have offered some fruit to the leaders of Protein Land. Protein Land leaders reciprocate and give Fruitland explorers some meat to take back to their people. Over time, more expeditions between the countries occur. Individuals in Fruitland begin benefiting from increased protein in their diets, and individuals in Protein Land benefit from adding a reliable fruit supply to theirs. Representatives from both countries begin to see improvement in the health, life expectancy, and well-being of their respective populations. So, trade continues between these two countries for two primary reasons. Number one, societal well-being has increased in both countries, and there's a clear net positive return from trade to the majority of these populations. Second, there is a clear and persistent disparity in the quote-unquote cost of production of goods in both nations. Now, we haven't introduced the concept of currency yet, but it's really costly to produce meat in fruit land because hunters routinely die, and fruits and grains are costly to produce in protein land based on storage needs, unreliable supplies, and poor growing conditions. So, it should be clear that in this simple example, fruit land enjoys an advantage in the production of grains and fruit over protein land, and alternatively, protein land enjoys an advantage in the production of meat over fruit land. Now, technically, Scottish philosopher and economist Adam Smith is credited for developing the principle of what's known as absolute advantage. And then after that, British political economist David Ricardo developed the principle of comparative advantage. At this point in our journey, I'm not going to drag you down the rabbit hole of distinguishing between absolute and comparative advantage. What's important right now is that each country enjoys an advantage over the other in the production of resources that individuals in both countries need for improved health and well-being. Now, on the surface, it looks like everybody wins from trade, but is it the case that everybody is happy about the trade that's occurring? Well, the answer in the short term is no. The hunters in fruit land have been put out of business due to the supply of cheaper meat coming from protein land, and the farmers and storage facilities in protein land, they've been pushed out due to the cheaper fruit and grains that are reliably coming from fruit land. But in the long term, to reduce potential unrest in both countries, hunters in fruit land and farmers in protein land will need to be retrained and reskilled to perform different jobs in their respective economies. If educational opportunities are not in place, then these citizens will foment unrest and conflict because they have been, quote-unquote, left behind by their leaders. Hence, investments in education and training are essential ingredients to any successful trade relationship. Jobs will be disrupted with global trade. If those who are disrupted aren't provided opportunities for growth and improvement, the benefits of trade can quickly be lost through unnecessary strife and conflict. Now, there's all sorts of underlying assumptions to the examples about advantage that we just gave. And what I didn't talk about is any kind of national emergency or requirements to produce one good or another. We'll pick that conversation up later. So this is where we're going to leave it today. Next week, we'll talk more about trade, and we'll begin to introduce the concept of currency to our simple global macroeconomy that we've built. So until next time, I wish you grace, dignity, and compassion. My name is Andy Temte. This is the Saturday Morning Muse. You can find the show on all the major streaming services as well as out on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, and maybe a family member or two. The show is produced by Nicholas Temte, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Muse.